As today, we've launched into the opening remarks and witness testimony in Donald Trump's criminal trial, Trump appears less focused on what's going on in the courtroom and more focused on what is not going on outside of the courtroom. He had a series of Truth Social posts, including this saying, "Why are Palestinian protesters and even rioters allowed to roam the capital C cities? Scream, shout, sit, block traffic, enter buildings, not get permits, other things, and basically do whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. While those who truly love our country and want to make America great are not allowed to peacefully protest. They're ushered off to faraway holding areas." So long truth short, why aren't they allowed to protest outside of my trial, but they're allowed to protest on college campuses? Because that's a new thing. People on college campuses protesting, super new to Donald Trump. And he really is focused on this, saying, unlike at Columbia University, where the radical left Palestinian protesters sat in the front lawn, blah, 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 Lower Manhattan is shut down. He says at some point it's like an armed camp. And I think that is so amazing that he cares so much more about not getting a bunch of like whack jobs to shout like, yay, go Trump or whatever, as if that's going to affect the outcome of the election. And if he can't have that, then how dare there be protests? And by the way, he's acting as if they're just running amok. They could do anything they want. There's no checks or whatever. People are being arrested like by the dozens. Representative Ilhan Omar's daughter was actually suspended already. She was apparently zip tied for 7 hours. It seems like they're kind of cracking down a little bit. I don't know if Donald Trump is familiar with that. So maybe we can get to Ilhan Omar's comment about that. But it is interesting how much he has to make it about himself. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, in order for the Damage Report to keep on going, we need viewers like you to become a member on YouTube. Can you click the join button on YouTube today? Thank you.
Yeah, and I think actually I really blame centrist Democrats and those who have not actually stood up for real free speech when it comes to students on campus. And the fact that, many Democrats voted to condemn the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" as anti-Semitic, which is completely not true. Like, because they've given this opening to the right and the right is running with it. The reason Donald Trump is tweeting about this is because it's winning for the right. It's winning because people like Representative Elise Stefanik and others have been grilling Columbia University the president and her whole little legal team, and they've been crushing it because they have these administrators have no backbone when it comes to standing up for speaking out against genocide, something that people have done under Vietnam, under South African apartheid. For time immemorial, students have been leading these kinds of protests. And so when you have these centrist administrators, these like sort of sad little like, I don't know, I guess you're right, Elise Stefanik, everything is anti-Semitic, they're just crumbling. And the right sees blood in the water and is like, oh, let's go on the attack. They are all Hamas and we're winning on this issue. Donald Trump's jumping on that gravy train. So for me, it is Democrats and these centrist administrators who have let everybody down and given the right a massive opening to an issue that is suddenly now really relevant because they had no backbone to stand up for their own students.
Well, and it's a very convenient opening for the right wing too, because the right wing is constantly looking for like, what's an easy free thing that we can point to be like, hey, we're not anti-Semitic, and then go right back to tolerating rabid anti-Semitism among the right.
1,000,000%.
So Donald Trump is incensed about the student protests. But when they were marching was it Charleston and Charlottesville? Charlottesville. So I always get those two mixed up. And saying Jews will not replace us. Well, there's very fine people on both sides. And when they radicalize their base with conspiracy theories about global elites and stuff like that, and then those people pick up an AR-15 and shoot up a synagogue or try to bomb it or set it on fire with Molotov cocktails, they don't have anything to say then. When it's murderous anti-Semitism, arms like, what are you gonna do? When it's some students protesting, then we just gotta fill the airwaves with it. It's not to say that there aren't people at any of these protests saying, terrible things or advocating for violence or whatever. But this is speech at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Murder, they're fine with.
And they aren't armed, John. I mean, we are
100%.
old enough. We're old enough to remember when people were armed storming capitals, not talking about Jan 6, because they didn't want to wear masks to keep one another and their communities safe.
Yeah, 100%.
That's when people were armed, and somehow that's fully protected speech. I mean, not to like give them credit, but this was the hypocrisy that spawned the Black Panther Party, which was saying we're already getting called radicals, and it seems that the only people who get respect in this country are when people are armed. Why don't we take up arms? That is not my political position personally, John, but that hypocrisy has existed in American society for so long, and we're just supposed to forget that the right regularly is armed at these demonstrations.
100%. And by the way, I want to read a quote from Police Chief John Chell about those who were arrested, including Representative Omar's daughter, saying, so let me put this in perspective. The students that were arrested were peaceful, offered no resistance whatsoever, just saying what they wanted to say in a peaceful manner. So that's what they did. I have no doubt, by the way, that Fox News is going to run with this as a convenient way to tar Representative Omar as anti-Semitic or whatever. Because again, Fox News, just like Republican politicians, is constantly looking for excuses for how they're not anti-Semitic after they literally platformed Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck, who would have a blackboard of all of the world's Jews and how they're pulling the strings of the world. But yeah, but Ilhan Omar has a daughter, so clearly she's anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Anyway. And to round this back to Donald Trump and like, why aren't they letting people organize right outside the courtroom? Dude, like 72 hours ago, a guy died there, set himself on fire. He died over the weekend, by the way. Does Donald Trump even know that that happened? If he knows, he sure doesn't seem to care. He's ignoring the fact that the spectacle of the trial has already, I mean, look, maybe the person was gonna do it regardless, but the person did it there and did it then. Trump doesn't care at all about the fact that person killed himself. It's just like, yeah, no, just bring everybody back in. They show big crowds outside because he wants it to be disrupted by things like that. And that was a person just immolating themselves. If there was a person that went there and committed acts of violence against other people, do you think that Donald Trump would have a single problem with that if that had a chance of potentially derailing the trial?
He probably called them beautiful. I mean,
100%.
what's
Fine
amazing?
people.
What's amazing about the fine people quote that we forget is that when he started that sentence about Charlottesville and the neo-Nazis marching in the street, he said, they're very fine people. You know, he started with alluding to the neo-Nazis as very fine people. We forget that. Like, he starts that sentence, they're very fine people. He means the neo-Nazis. He's not talking about the people protesting the neo-Nazis. And then he stops and he goes, oh, I guess the other side is object. I guess other people see the other side is good. And then he goes, oh, on both sides. That's what we forget about that quote. He's literally actually calling the Nazis fine people first and foremost.
And they'd already killed someone.
Yes.
Their hair had already died, and he's speaking out in support of them. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.